Yeah, but that's the divide and conquer. Get them on one side, get them hating each other, and it's everything. And you're seeing it now with instead of Americans who want a better country and want their neighbor to succeed, which, by the way, is the real world. Most Americans do want that, and they care for their neighbor, and the diversity thing. But the media splits us up into Asian American, African American, whatever American, but it's not just American. And they split you up that way, and they try to pit them against each other.
Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We have a very special guest today, Rob O'Neill, dear friend of ours, of the family. How you doing?
I'm having a good day, Dan. How you doing?
I'm good. Are you in New York?
I'm in New York, yes. I'll be here for a couple of days. It's nice to be off the road and not doing much.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been hectic lately, but now it's the holidays, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I got a couple more trips coming up, and after that, yeah, I'm looking forward to, my favorite time of year is the 26th through the 1st, where no one really knows where they are, nothing's going on, and you can just lay down and not have any guilt whatsoever.
Yeah, you guys going to go to Montana or anything, or are you staying in New York?
No, we're going to stay in New York. We're going to chill out here. Jess and I are at the point now where we're going to start bringing people to us. Normally, because we have family in Massachusetts and then down south and up Montana. It's like we used to always go to them. Back when it's fun, drink on the planes, watch a couple movies. Now it's like, dude, the hangover sucks. I'm tired of traveling. Like, it used to be fun to be in a plane. Now it's like, I'm done with this shit.
Yeah, no kidding. So what have you been up to lately? What have you been working on?
The new podcast, the Operator Podcast, because I was able to partner with you in that, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy that because, as we have spoken about, I call it the Operator because everyone's operating. If you're doing anything positive to affect other people or yourself or your family, you're an operator. So I'm able to not just talk about the missions, but my view as an operator about current events, everything from the shit going on here, the shit going on with Russia, with China, with all our endless wars, my feelings as an operator to you, the plumber, the operator, to you, the single mom, the operator. So I want that to take up more of my time because it's fun. I realize how much you really need to prepare for that. But it's I like the fact that I need to get my points of view from all kinds of different sources. Like I might hate the New York Times, but now I read it because I want to hear people who really think that they're saying something good, but they got to be full of shit for an agenda. So that's fun. I'm still on the speaking circuit. So I travel around and I talk about success, mission success, high performance teams, stuff like that. And then the apparel company, RJO Apparel. People are digging the books. I've got my book, The Operator, that I wrote a few years ago. And then I wrote one with Dakota Meyer called The Way Forward. And I've learned that publishers are really bad at publishing. So they never really got marketed. So I'm able to market them now. And I've come up with a scheme where within reason, I'll sign anything you want. And it's great this time of year because people that give their buddies a book of mine, but they have me sign some shit. Like I had a guy, one of my favorites is like, David, you kill at selling mattresses the way I killed Bin Laden. Merry Christmas. So shit like that. I'm trying to figure out a way to get more done, but not travel so much.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's, there is in spurts for a couple of months at a time. It's pretty fun. And then it's like, oh my God. I just unpacked and now I've got to do all this shit again. So I want to talk about the way forward a little bit with you and Dakota because, one of the things it does is kind of address some of the ills of modern society and then, talks about how we can obviously move forward from that. But if you had to summarize the negativity that's in Western culture and particularly in America right now, how would you summarize that?
The negativity in the culture? Well, I mean, the way forward started with you can't just live on what you did in the past. You got to move forward. And the problem, I think, with the negativity in the culture right now is, you need to remember your past. But right now, the negativity wants to erase our past because they don't like what someone did 200 years ago, even though none of us had anything to do with it. But then a lot of negativity comes from people with agendas that are teaching people who have never left a classroom that this is a bad place because people who cross a river on a boat from Italy used weapons, and as opposed to, I don't think people learn shit from winning. You're going to learn from failing, and you're going to get a lot more out of talking to someone with whom you disagree than just shutting them the fuck down. And that's what people are learning now. I don't like it. I'm going to shut you down because you're a fascist when they don't realize shutting someone down is what a fascist does. There's no dialogue with fascism. That's not what Lenin was doing when he was going back up to Russia. Like they're gonna shut people down and kill them, and that's I think that you're going to get a lot more learning from history, and I guess. And I never thought about the way forward that way, but a good way forward is know what happened in the past. And as someone who continually fucks up, I know what I did wrong, and I try not to do it again. But I'll do it. I'll fuck up, but then I want to, I learn again the next time, hopefully.
Well, there is some quote about those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, right?
Yes.
Somebody smarter than us said that at some point. And it does seem like we talk about this a lot on this show in particular. You could summarize any problem that's going on in Western culture, and then the solution to it is probably going to be something some dude said 3,000 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Like some stoic. So why do you think it is that we continually forget the lessons that we've learned? You know what I mean? Because I like the way you frame this idea of the operator as somebody like it's blue collar people doing work, whether it's fucking murdering people or tightening screws somewhere. It's the same job, right? It's just the attention to detail, how you do anything, how you do everything, all this stuff, right?
Think about right down the road here in New York City. Think about how people hustle and bustle to work. I mean, granted, there's some dirty shit going on, but think about how clean it is because of that guy that wakes up at 2 a.m. to take the trash out. There are trashmen every single day in New York City, in Manhattan. I've seen them. And they don't get tips on Christmas, and they get all they like what did Chris Rock say when he gets home, all he wants is a big piece of chicken, and that's an operator, and he's keeping shit clean. The guy turning the screws, the plumber. I mean, I knew a plumber who's making a good salary in New York, and he said, well, because I get employed by people, even rich guys, billionaires need to take shits, and there are people out there. It's the people that don't get credit for the work. It's like in the military. You always hear about SEAL Team 6. You don't hear about the air crew guy that make sure the doors got open. You don't hear about the intel operator, the people that made sure you got the food you need. There's so many cogs involved, and I think everyone's an operator. And that's why I like to talk to someone who saved up to get the shitty seats at the Eagles game, but he has an opinion about what happened with Brittany Griner. That's what I'm saying. And there's a lot more of those people out there than the people that are like the big Ruth quote, the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. Most people are not crazy left or crazy right. Most people want to raise their family. They want to do what's right. They want a good country. They don't realize a lot of shit that's going on behind the scenes that some of these scumbags in DC are doing. And it takes a conversation like that on a sidebar that doesn't get silenced to hopefully solve some of these problems. But people in the past, societies in the past, it's historically 200 years before a society crumbles.
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, so we're there.
Yeah.
It's sad.
I mean, maybe it is just that way, but if that's a part of natural life, or I guess the natural progression of societies, it is kind of interesting that I would love to look into this and maybe do some primary research and write something about this, but we're in a position now where let me go back. So street sweepers and trashmen that keep things clean, engineers that are designing shit, plumbers that turn screws, keeping buildings standing and stuff like that. It's a good analog for all the things that happen behind the scenes that people forget about. You know what I mean? That make all of this possible and make it all fucking nice. And
make it work, make it float.
Yeah. But and then we don't project that into our own life, like all the simple stuff you have to do to make your own life good as well. We just kind of expect it to be good because it's been good for so long. That's certainly part of it, right? That's part of societal decay, generally speaking. And I wonder if that's part of the natural cycle. Is it also part of the natural cycle that, like, maybe I'm, because I'm involved in it, I'm too close to this, but it seems like all of the Marxism that's flooded into America and the fascist collusion between government and big tech and corporations and things like that are happening right now. I wasn't a fan of the last 20 years of war that we fought for no particular reason, but
I'm not either.
It did have one very obvious benefit, and there's probably a couple 100,000 people that are competent, and then a few 20 or so thousand that are really competent at defending things. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's three tiers. There's probably what 50 or 60,000 tier 1, 2, and 3 assaulters. This crews are like, I'm doing podcasts, you're fucking doing speaking events. There's a lot of us out there that have assaulted a lot. And,
Yeah.
So I wonder, if it is indeed the truth that there's some natural cycle that brings us to this point, is part of the natural cycle that when people in these positions fuck up that bad and create a class of warriors like us, is that part of it? And then if that's the case, isn't there some kind of intrinsic value and then, of course, intrinsic responsibility for us to be ready to fight back against this shit, right? That's where my brain goes.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, we're ready to fight back, but I think it's important for us to instill in the next generation how important it is too. That's the saying, I hope I don't screw it up, is that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, men create hard times. And it's a cycle too. It's the whole putting the toad in the water that's lukewarm and then you boil it, he never notices because it's slowly boiling. And I mean, look at the point now where there's so many articles out there about Navy SEAL training and how hard it is, and it's so bad that if they don't mention that if they quit, they have to go chip paint on a ship. That's part of the deal. It's your decision to quit. But then they're bitching about, well, they sent me somewhere and I didn't want to do this, and poor me. And this generation's lucky that the war was fought by people that knew how to fight. I if they think chipping paint on a ship is hard, you'd live on a border in the 13th century in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And again, it's a sad cycle, and it's to the point now where, like, if you try to get, not all of them, and I don't want to broad brush it, but if you try to give there's a lot of great young kids out there. If you give them advice on this, the whole term bro vet comes out. All right, you're going to label me. You haven't been there. And I personally don't think you need to carry a speed timer and 3 switchblades to Walmart. But some guys think that's them. They have never been to combat. It's a vicious cycle. And Dakota, I don't know who he took this from, but I heard him say, "I never want another 9/11, but I'd love another 9/12." Fortunately, that's a weak men, hard times. That's
sure,
it.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that comes up in raising kids a lot. We actually talked to Tim Kennedy about it last week a little bit, but it's like, how do you have a mock training for your kids, I guess, or expose them to that kind of pressure so iron sharpens iron without fucking them up? You know what I mean? Because it just, there isn't that natural pressure out there anymore. You and I, you walked to school. I walked to school until I was in like the 3rd grade when we were too far away from the school for it to make sense. But it was pretty common. There was a caravan of us assholes walking from my neighborhood over to the school. We were exposed to all kinds of different shit, and then we're out of the house until later in the day, until sundown, basically. Whenever the street lights come on, you got to be home. That's the general rule. But it's just not like that for a lot of people anymore. And I can't figure out why. I mean, some people call it safetyism, and maybe that's it. But there's no data to suggest that life is intrinsically more dangerous for children today than it was in the 1980s. That's just not true, right?
I think we're just more connected. I think there's been as many perverts as, I think they got away with more, so we didn't realize. But now, I remember walking to McKinley Elementary School, and so that means what? 4th grade, walking, leaving the house, picking kids up at their house, walking across the baseball field. There was like a bum in under an overpass that we would talk to. Dangerous as shit. We didn't know. Say hi, whatever. He's smoking whatever, and then fucking go to school and then walk home. And that, I mean, would I recommend it now? No, just because I think we've been exposed to bad shit that's out there, and I don't want my 4th grader talking to a bum. But I think it is a Tim Kennedy's a shining example. I don't think everyone can be like him, but he's got logical thinking. He'll know how to pull it off, how to teach his kids how to defend themselves, how to defend their turf. He's one of a kind. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's more dangerous now or we're just our ears and eyes are wider, or we're just helicopter parents. But I think even the helicopter parent thing's going through the cycle now too, where parents are they're calling it free range parenting. And I'm not the expert in that, but they're like, let them go do their thing. And, I'm not saying don't let your kid run around the airplane and be an asshole, smack him and shit, but I'm not too hard. You don't want to abuse them, but sharpen iron with iron.
Yeah. I mean, it's so you know this as well as anybody. One of the most fundamental skills you can have in life, whether you're a tier 1 operator or whether you're just some dude going back and forth to work every day is being situationally aware, right?
Yes.
Not just for not just for safety, although that's probably the place where it comes in the most, but reading the room in a fucking social or business situation. Well, that situational awareness is going to benefit you a lot. You don't ever develop that skill if you're like put in a little box your whole wrapped in bubble wrap for the first like 20 years of your life, man. And we wonder why kids get to university and they're like afraid of being offended and shit. It's like, well, you raised them, motherfucker. Like you did this.
Yeah, that's the truth too. And it's the herd immunity thing too. Yeah, everyone loves a vaccination, but also if you, I mean, remember drinking? Imagine seeing a kid drink from a fire hose or not a fire hose, but like a garden hose. But that was every time. And your immune system is going to get weak the more you try to protect it, I think. And, the vaccine, whatever, I know that smart people are making smart shit that I use. I heard a comedian say, I don't understand a zipper, but I use it. I'm not going to go to the bank with my dong hanging out. But the overprotection, I think, and the situational awareness, how many people you think have died in car crashes and their last text was BRB, be right there.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever, or if you put it in a different perspective, if you saw someone walking down like 42nd Street in Manhattan reading a book, you're going to think you're a fucking idiot. What are you doing? However, everyone is staring at their phone. And, it doesn't even need to turn into a walk signal. Just that light's green, even though there's an arrow, they just start walking. They don't look left or right. Just because you have the right of way doesn't mean something can't fucking kill you right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, actually. Like the presumption of like it's fair now for me to have this right because that light says so. So I'm gonna just accept that as my reality and progress forward without any kind of care in the world. That's a really stupid way to go through life.
Well, it's a really stupid way to make your life just drastically change in the blink of an eye. And I mean, I've seen it too with in Manhattan. Walking across the street, I remember looking both ways and someone said, you don't need to look both ways. It's a one-way street. I'm like, have you seen those fucking electric bikes that go 45 miles an hour with some dude delivering a pizza? That smacks me. It sucks for both of us. It takes me 1 second to look.
It's not even just the tragedy of the event. It's like how easily it could have been avoided. That's so irritating. And then we run into this stuff on a day-to-day basis and ways that we don't really consider to be dangerous because we only can understand danger in the very near term. Like we understand there's that building's on fire, so I'm not going to go into it. But we don't look at a gas pipe and be like, you know what, that's probably not a good place for that to be. Maybe I should do something about that. And what's that phrase? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's kind of the purpose of this show. It's like people have resigned themselves to accept that the world is flawed. And I guess that's just how it is. So I'm going to get mine. That's one attitude. One attitude is, well, there's nothing we can do about it, so what the hell? And then there's the entitlement, and it all leads in one direction. If you, like, a citizen is somebody who yearns for their rights and appreciates their rights, but understands that they have to engage in the responsibilities required of them to secure those rights. We've never had this problem before in human history because most people have just been trying to stay alive. You know what I mean? And now, now that's not even really a problem.
I'm a big fan of Yellowstone, the show, because I'm from there, and it's a great show. But then the one before that, the prequel, is 1883, which is way better, and they just explain getting from Texas to, they think, Oregon, and how anything can get you killed. A rattlesnake. I was thinking a little shit like when they're this is in 1883, when like the girl's kissing the guy, the cowboy, and I'm like, how bad can their breath be? Because they don't have floss. How do they keep their teeth? Little shit like that, and they're trying to survive taking a shit because that snake didn't eat you. And then your fucking stagecoach flips when you try to cross a goddamn river. And that's, and like you're like, the dude looks like he's 60, he's probably 28, and that's as old as you're getting because you're gonna die in natural causes or something. I mean that's just trying to live. Now it's a piece of cake, and if you don't get something that that you're not entitled to. You can whine about it, and someone's going to get it for you. But thinking like we were talking about situational awareness, something as simple as a grease fire in your kitchen. Ask someone, well, do you have a fire extinguisher? Do you know which one to use? Do you know how to use it? Do you know what it's for? Have you taught your kids how to use it? You don't necessarily, if your entire kitchen's on fire, that's to get you out. Where's the first exit? Where's your family? Like I guarantee the majority of people don't have a fire extinguisher and couldn't use one if you handed it to them.
Sure, yeah. And we've seen plenty of people try to put out grease fires with water.
That's not going to happen.
Even just go to your cupboard and get flour. That's better than water. Anything. Yeah. Well, anything
that'll take the oxygen away from you.
Yeah, but it's like, that's a really specific example. But I think that general attitude permeates culture. It's like it's almost like the reverse of broken window theory in society now, where we don't take responsibility for any of the stuff around us. You know what I mean? Broken window theory suggests that if the people who own or manage a place or live in a place keep it looking nice, there's no broken windows, no shit on the ground, then people will treat it better. That's the general attitude. It's a pretty base psychological phenomenon that happens. And we apply it in criminology to like property crimes and like small petty crime. If you allow people to just commit small petty crimes to get away with stealing shoplifting or vandalism and things like that, they'll graduate to bigger and bigger crimes. Or people who are intent on committing bigger crimes will come to the area about, well, nobody gives a fuck about this place. I'm going to do my crimes here. And for some reason, we never applied that same logic to politics. You know what I mean? In America, which seems like a pretty good place to apply that logic, because we've especially, I mean, it's always kind of been the case since print media especially, but pretty much always, we have these popularity contests. We talk about democracy all the time, like it's the best thing since sliced bread. It's like, all right, cool. I mean, I like the idea of people having a choice. There's no question about that. And I think prioritizing individual liberty is the most important thing that we could ever do as a society. But having a popularity contest to decide who gets to pull the levers behind the scenes and then having no way of holding these people accountable, that doesn't seem like a great idea.
It's a horrible idea. There's no accountability whatsoever. And then and it goes from the whole, all I want is my next term in office. I don't care about getting anything done. So it's popular. I'm keeping them popular, giving them stuff that is funded by the taxpayer just so they can reelect me so I can get reelected. And it's those people that have, they're in Congress for a number of years and they go to the Senate for a number of years and then run for governor. And it's the same bullshit. If you notice, it's the same arguments every time. Nothing changes. When it all comes down to it, the Democrats go back to abortion and the Republicans are pro-life. And that's the fight. Because that they know they can win the popularity contest because people are going to show up based on the emotion that we've given them, and they throw around like, look at the democracy debate. We're defending democracy. Well, how? What do you mean? First of all, well, January 6th, what? That's abortion. And it's same bullshit, same people. The whole and I mean it's the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic. I think the reason that they do that is because a democracy would be a lot easier to change the Constitution than a constitutional republic would be. And these people in DC know that shit, but they're not there to there's no change. Yeah,
like anything else, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. But I also think there's I don't think that any form of government scales indefinitely, right? No matter how good it is, because people are going to have, I think it's particularly true in a republic, in a democratic republic, because there's going to be too many disparate opinions for everybody to be governed under one specific set of rules, right? So that was kind of the point of federalism, is to, like, we all agree on these things. People should have equal rights. People should have the freedom of speech. People should have guns. They should be free from search and seizure. They should be free from troops being quartered in their homes, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And everything else goes back to the states because that seems like a more manageable, it seems like a more manageable level to adjudicate all the minor differences that we might have opinion-wise.
Yeah, sending it back to the states, and that was the plan. I said, I don't know if I said constitutional republic or whatever I might have said. I have a tendency to talk fast, and I could be hungover. Who knows? But it's supposed to go back to the states, and that's the whole argument with Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court simply said, based on the Constitution, it's not in there. The states can all decide, and then they just spin it upside down, like they're taking away women's health care. And again, it's not you're guaranteed the right to pursue freedom. You're not guaranteed freedom, but everything gets so spun because they know if they can play on your heartstrings and win the popularity contest, that's the problem. And then it's the self-licking ice cream cone. It just keeps eating itself, getting bigger and bigger.
So let's talk about some solutions to some of these problems. I'm not sure that the federal government in America can be fixed, right? Because technically speaking, there's nothing wrong with it. I know that's going to be a controversial statement to people, but the way that it's set up to operate is a good way for it to be set up to operate, but it's not being operated that way. Like it's not a problem that our system of government is wrong. It's a problem that our system of government is not being followed by anybody in power. And we tend to going
back to like the representatives and senators, the way that it was based. Now you've got different states like California funding a senatorial race in Georgia, and they're spending a couple times the amount that you should spend on national presidential elections. And the only way to make a change is to do the shit like Elon Musk did at Twitter. You got to go in there and clean house, but you can't do it because you try to drain the swamp. Donald Trump realized real quick that the swamp has fangs, and they will bite you, and it will do everything, including the media and social media and the left and the right, to get you out because you're disrupting what we got going. That's the rhinos and the Democrats.
Yeah, and it's like it isn't just the politicians; it's the bureaucrats that stay in power for decades without ever being elected. I mean, people like David Axelrod, for example, or any of the chiefs of staff that have worked for the Democrats or the Republicans, either at the Senate level, long-term congressional level, or especially in the presidency. You'll notice that a lot of these people work from multiple administration after administration. They're never elected, but they're making decisions for everybody, regardless of having no actual authority. You know what I mean? It's a very bizarre situation. I think they actually tackled this in that show, The West Wing, back in the day, where Leo McGarry, the chief of staff, his character, when I think Martin Sheen's character was under anesthesia, and technically that invokes the 25th Amendment immediately. So the vice president takes charge, but McGarry made a decision while he was under anesthesia without his authorization, which is technically not legal, right? But that kind of shit happens. Like, nobody that can hear the sound of my voice right now thinks that Joe Biden is making decisions, right?
No, Ron Klain's making decisions. Yeah. Barack Obama's making decisions.
Right.
Like Ron Klain's the chief of staff. He's been there forever. Look at the same names the bureaucrats that have been there forever. John Kerry. I mean, how many positions does he have? He was elected a couple of times. He's the czar of climate change. And climate change is just the new religion, so they can keep you voting one way to keep money for the Great Reset or whatever the hell that shit's called. But it's the bureaucrats, the Podesta family. Look at the attorneys behind everything that are always there. And it goes to the point where if you come after them, they're going to come after your family, and they're going to hit you with lawsuits. And it's the same thing with the primaries, with new blood in Washington. If you don't toe the party line, both sides, we're coming after you. You won't even win your primary. And the bureaucrats. Look how difficult it was in combat to deal with the Department of State. They have no interest in combat. And there's someone over there. You're trying to give a quick brief to get out the door, and someone's picking apart the verbiage in slide number 4 when there should only be 3 slides or whatever. But yeah, that's the swamp, though. That's the. There are people, including the media. They're in New York. They're in D.C. They live in L.A. and they think the rest of the country is the Midwest.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to know about the Department of State getting involved in our business, the Afghan pullout is the primary example. Because they were completely in charge of that. They were that, like, you would think that an evacuation like that from an active combat zone would be a military operation, because that's kind of what we do, right? Like the Department of State doesn't do shit like that. They do have they have a pretty good advanced team that does a lot of stuff. Like during the Iraq War, they came from when Turkey wouldn't let us fly through their airspace. A DOS team punched down through northern Iraq, hooked up with the fucking some Peshmerga guys, just Kurdish people in general, and convince them again that we weren't going to fuck them over, although, we did.
Yeah.
But, they do that kind of stuff pretty well, like preparing the battlefield when it comes to war. In some cases, just like developing contacts and stuff like that. But as far as execution of military operations, why the fuck would Department of State even be involved in that?
This is the same thing with the initial invasion of Afghanistan, and you have the case officers, the real spies. I don't mean to broad brush anyone. We've got great people everywhere, and same with the State Department at first. And it should be like the killing the ant with the hammer. That's where we come in. We go in and we crush you, and then that's what the diplomats, the good ones, need to come in and explain it, and then you pull out, something like that. But when you get so far into, especially Afghanistan, and you've got people like Department of State with the agencies that they're only there because they needed a combat rotation so they can get personally appointed to something else. And you have that, and then it's been going up and down the chain of the command in how many 10 different agencies and all the military, and we're just telling the people above us what they want to hear, so I can get promoted. The majors are lying to the colonels, which are lying to the generals, and they want the generals want to either become a senator or work for DynCorp or whatever. No one's telling the truth except the people who've been there. And I remember saying, if we pull out of Bagram, this national army of the Afghans, they're going to lose to the Taliban in a week. They're going to get rolled. And everyone who's been on the ground training these fucking guys would have told you that. But except the people that aren't close to it, the closest thing they came to a Purple Heart was burning their lips on the nice espresso machine the taxpayer paid for them. But it's all diplomatic bullshit. It's all cables and lies until you get on the ground. And that's when real lives die. But, that's just a political talking point once a year, once every election cycle.
Yeah, and it amounts to fuck all, right? So one of the things, so this show is kind of set up around a list of principles, and one of them I borrowed from the oath of enlistment or oath of office. It's more or less the same, but it's I'll support and defend liberty against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It seems like in modern times we've forgotten about that foreign and domestic part, right? I mean, look, the defending the Constitution has always been a bit of a moving goalpost, right? Because what political parties or other interests will call themselves America very frequently, which is kind of weird. Like we're here defending America. It's like, no, you're here defending your point of view, which is fine to do, by the way, but don't call yourself America. That's weird. But even then, that part is a kind of a moving target, and then we forgot about defending ourselves internally until pretty recently, and with the only way that we've decided to defend ourselves internally is to accuse each other of being the enemy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is not really that's kind of not the point of that whole thing.
No, it's not at all. And they when you say defending democracy, defending America, but you'll see the same people campaigning. They say, well, it's us against the Republicans, and they don't even realize they're saying the enemy is this side or that side. It's the party. It's the party. And then all of a sudden when they need the independent vote, which is how you win nowadays, because there are people that they vote right down the left or the right. They need the independent. So they'll say they'll bring in democracy and bullshit and say how they were defending democracy when whatever. And again, you can see this on both sides of the aisle, and some people are so just get spun up by the herd mentality. Just the mob is doing this, I got to do this. January 6th, a prime example. That was stupid, and it was stupid as shit on one end, completely overblown on the other end. But like, there's nobody there in the middle saying, guys, this is a bad idea. You got that dickhead Epps who's saying, go to the Capitol, go to the Capitol. You're telling me the Fed's not involved at all with that, knowing the herd's going to go in. That's an anti or pro-communist tactic they're using. But we need people to be, once in a while, take a breath and a step back and a little bit of individual free thinking, which they don't really want us to do. Because it's almost like, well, when the peasants are uprising, give them the circus. And so we have the circus all the time. I'm guilty of shit. I'm sitting here at home watching a World Cup with countries I'm not even involved with, cheering, not paying attention because this is just fun. And sometimes you just need the entertainment, but they're good at doing that. They're good at hey, look over here, boom, go chase it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the Roman Republic and then the empire afterwards, didn't last as long as it did because of how well managed it was. It lasted because of the Colosseum, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
It lasted because of the wars of conquest that created veterans who became loyal to the Republic, whether they were born there or not. There's quite a few Spanish people, quite a few French people, I guess Gaul people who were pretty loyal to the Republic after a while because they made them incredibly wealthy. But it seemed like for a very long time in early America, and then probably 18th and 19th century France as well, the people were more or less aligned by principle, and it wasn't all this my team versus your team bullshit. You know what I mean?
But that's the divide and conquer. Get them on one side, get them hating each other, and it's everything. And you're seeing it now with instead of Americans who want a better country and want their neighbor to succeed, which, by the way, is the real world. Most Americans do want that, and they care for their neighbor, and the diversity thing. But the media splits us up into Asian American, African American, whatever American, but it's not just American. And they split you up that way, and they try to pit them against each other. Again, the reality on the ground and the fake reality on the internet are two way different things. But people get so spun up on the internet, and then they just know if people are reading this on Twitter or seeing it on the news, that if they can send a few operatives into that place, you're going to get shit like January 6th. You're going to get shit like the strangers punching cops at a drag show at a children's library type shit. When most Americans don't care about any of that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. So you talked about independent voters a minute ago, and this is what happens in every election cycle, midterm and main election, even local elections. In a lot of cases, you try to pick the issues that independents care about and say how bad the other side is for that particular issue. You don't ever say, there's a housing crisis or the economy's bad, we're going to fix that shit, right? Which, the economy always speaks to independent voters. What you say is the other side's trying to do this and we're going to stop them. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's very antagonistic.
That's a great point. That's the whole thing with the red tidal wave that's definitely coming, and the Democrats knew they had nothing, so they went with abortion, and not just abortion, saying they're trying to take away women's health care, and that's when they spin it all too with the and not just the biological women, all women, and it's like they're just really trying to wrap everything up that we need to stop them, and that worked. I mean, mail fraud, whatever, which happens. That got a lot of young people out there that are of legal voting age, which to me is another funny one too. You're 21 you need to be 21 to be old enough to drink a beer, but 18 is fine to vote. We might lower it to 16 because we can spin you up and get the votes. That's all we care about. That's why our southern border is wide open. But they knew that if they could spin the emotion of they're trying to do this to you, that's why a lot of young people came out and voted blue.
Yeah, for sure. And it's I wonder so this idea of intersectionalism is essentially first of all it's a Marxist propaganda tool.
Well, yeah.
And this isn't like a conspiracy theory. You can go read the goddamn manual where they're talking about doing this stuff, but forget about that for a moment. What it does is it divides everybody into these subcategories and then ranks you based on how offended you should be, right?
That's right.
And, ultimately, as my friend Chris Williamson likes to say, it becomes a 360-degree firing squad. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, in the end, everybody's just pissed off at each other. But I wonder, I think it is, we talk about back in the day when this shit didn't matter. I think it's a function of trying to survive, just trying to stay alive, where, you ignore all the noise and all the static and you reduce things to the lowest possible level. Step 1, stay alive. Step 2, eat food. Step 3, clean water. I mean, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? How do you convince people today that while there isn't a threat to their actual lives, although there might be, right, because 1984 is happening, how do you convince them that the republic is dying because they've gone full retard and climbed the ladder of intersectionalism instead of treating other people the way that you want to be treated, taking care of other people and ignoring people who are trying to pit you against each other? I mean, this is what you have to teach children, right?
Well, and that's the conversation you need to have. But again, if you start talking about this, that's entertaining the serfs with the circus. These are first world problems. I mean, what's the dude's name? Is it Victor Bout? Who's the spy? He just gave his first interview in Russia saying the West is killing themselves simply by the 70 genders they have. because they're taking your eye off the ball and just fighting, hating each other based on stuff that really doesn't matter to you. And then most people would agree that I don't give a shit what you do at home. I really don't care. Stop hurting other people with it. That's how I feel. But they just spin it into all this other craziness, and then it doesn't even matter which platform they're throwing at your face. I mean, the phones listen to you, so whichever side you're not on, they're throwing that at you, so you can get fired up and then send out the tweet that gets you, shadow banned, which we both know about. But again, it's the spin. They just love the spin. Even if you try to bring up a fact, and you can get labeled. Bring up a fact that goes against. We need to bow down to someone else's emotion and lack of reality, because we tell them a fact, and then all of a sudden we're the problem, and we need to. And then, this is all one big distraction. And it was a lot of this stuff was brought up before the midterms. Now they're not talking about that anymore. And then now they're going to start talking about the 2024 election, that noise. But again, no one came out with a solution to anything else. So that guy's a problem. We need to squash him. We need to silence them.
Yeah, it's no. I don't recall any time in human history when the side trying to fucking censor and silence the other side has been on the right side. You know what I mean?
No, they never are.
Yeah,
that's the book. But they're so good. It's the whole. It was actually a joke. I'm sure you heard in the military when you're late for work. It's like, because you're out boozing. It's like, admit nothing, deny everything, make counter accusations.
Oh yeah,
that's exactly what they're doing. No, I'm not the fascist. You're the fascist. Shut them down.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they're doing. And you can read it. You can read this. It's like the tip of the iceberg is communism. Below it is Karl Marx.
Yeah,
and they communists are literally laughing at us like, look at these idiots. They're doing it all, and they're infiltrating us. We take over their schools. We take over the entertainment. We take over the media. We got them. We're going to beat Nikita Khrushchev said that. We're going to beat the Americans by firing a shot. And look what's happening. We're burning books. We're shutting people down, and people are destroying statues about people they don't even know anything.
Yeah, I mean it's.
Yeah, here I am yelling at everyone. What's the solution? That's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question, but I mean, it's for the first. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, so part of the solution is just laying it all out, right? I mean, when you say they're calling us idiots, quite literally, because the communist ideology calls that person the useful idiot, right? That's part of the program. So, and this issue with this Marxist bullshit, the cultural progressivism, isn't that building a bigger tent is intrinsically bad. It's that it's been weaponized from the beginning in order to divide people. So once everybody kind of got on board, like, oh, there's gay people, we don't give a shit about that anymore. The progressives didn't say, oh, good, we won. They said, well, let's push it farther, because their intent was never to fucking secure rights for people. Their intent was to fuck people over and divide people, right?
That's it. I remember even with the Don't Ask, Don't Tell when I was getting out of the Navy. And again, I'm looking around a room. We're at Bagram or something. I'm like, does anyone care if anyone's gay? No one cares. And then with the gay marriage thing, all these two dudes want to do is get married. These two girls want to get married. That's it. And someone said, yeah, that's fine, but it's not going to stop there. And I remember hearing a long time ago, someone said, yeah, eventually some crazy cat lady is going to want to marry her house or herself. And now that's happening. And there are gay men that are being booted from the LGBTQ community because all they're saying is all we want to do is get married and be quiet and like live a happy, quiet life. And now they're stealing our platform from us because it's just continually taking more and more and more. And it's a communist tactic, yet they rename it socialism because doesn't that sound great? We'll just be social. We'll take care of each other, the common good. The prime example of the way communism doesn't work, how we will not take care of each other, is when push comes to shove. Okay, 2020, where'd the toilet paper go? Why aren't we sharing? Nope, it's gone.
I'm going to get mine. That's the attitude, right?
The bread line. In capitalism, bread waits for you, and socialism, you wait for the bread.
Yeah. I mean, but you could tell, right, from the, if not, like, I could always tell. It always made sense to me that this was all designed to capture the attention of people and then leverage it against them. But now it's hard to, man, I don't know how people can look at this and not feel like they're being played. You know what I mean? If it was just about securing the rights, then there would have been a victory lap at some point instead of, all right, now grown men and women can do what they want. Let's cut fucking dicks and tits off of little kids. You know what I mean? Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? And now,
that's what we're at. And now you're the problem if you bring it up.
yeah, and there's been this weird push the last 3 or 4 years with this pedophile bullshit, man. And that's
crazy.
Yeah.
And it's coming out.
Like,
that's why they're so pissed, because people are uncovering it, and people are starting to realize that it's the whole the grass is growing through the snow right now, and people should be seeing it, but it didn't start with that. It started with something very, very simple. And again, it's a tactic that was written. And if you go anywhere where someone is actually screaming about how offended they are about some like a minority culture, it's not that culture yelling at you. It's some offended white guy
or a white woman, more aptly.
Or a white woman, yeah.
Usually it's a white woman.
I've heard Native Americans in Montana say we just get pissed when they're offended on our behalf when we're not offended.
Yeah, you know what Native Americans in Montana are offended about? It's that their young women for some reason keep going missing and nobody's doing a goddamn thing about it. That's what they get offended about. And
we can't bring that up. We got to bring up the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, seriously, like anybody gives a fuck about that. Yeah, it's weird, man.
Nobody gives a fuck about that.
And there's no real correlation. Like I want to separate these two things, because the cultural progressive movement that co-opted the gay and lesbian movement and then has now transitioned it into ironically into the trans and this pedophile bullshit.
It's kicked the gay and lesbian community out, and now they're moving so crazy.
It's two very different things. So if you look at the statistics on child sex crimes, it's not openly gay men committing those crimes. It is almost entirely fucking straight identified creepy weirdos that you could pick out of a lineup pretty easily if you looked hard enough, right?
Like, for example, maybe someone that works in the Department of Energy that wears pumps and lipstick but steals fucking baggage from everyone. You might say that non-binary person might be a fucking problem.
Yeah, but the two 45-year-old gay dudes that live in their fucking Upper East Side apartment these are two very different groups of people.
Yes.
And
they hijacked it.
You know, and just like any group of people, it is your job to police your own first, right? Clean up your house first. And I honestly, it's taken a long time, because I think a lot of the gay community, one, just wanted to be left alone, and two, they truly believed that it was a conspiracy theory, all this stuff. But they're finally, like, gays against groomers and LGB without the T, and a lot of these groups are starting to come out and be like, hey, fuck off, dude. Like, you're making life dangerous for us because you're trying to associate yourself with us, and you're out there fucking with kids, and we're not into that shit.
They hopped on. It was a legitimate gripe for equal rights, and they just the crazies hopped on and hijacked it and booted them off it. Mm-hmm. It's even with the way that the Black Lives Matter works. Okay, yeah, obviously Black Lives Matter, but then the Marxists took it, and they're stealing money, and all of a sudden, even my wife asked me, she's like, "Why is there all this sign say Black Trans Lives Matter?" It's like, it started as Black Lives Matter, which it does now. They keep going further and further, and it takes a legitimate argument away, because a lot of the mentally ill hop on board.
Well, if
you get labeled if you say all lives matter. All lives matter. What's the problem with that?
Yeah, it's stupid. But you know as well as I do from working in from doing public speaking generally, but also being around politics or issues based charities and stuff. The people who show up for every single event are the craziest motherfuckers on the planet, because they got nothing else to do, right? Like like if you see somebody that shows up to every single political fundraiser that isn't somebody that's spending a lot of money and trying to buy influence, that person is a lunatic. There's something weird going on with them. I worked in politics. The people that you see on a day-to-day basis, they're fucking crazy, right? And they're, easy to take advantage of, right? Because all you have to do is be like, hey, you know what? There's some weird shit going on over here. Maybe you should go check it out. And all of a sudden, you've got people fucking burning down cities.
Craziness. I was at Fox News the other day in the studio, and there was this huge protest. Of course, Trump's the devil, and big signs, and dump Trump, and all. Fox News is evil. And I know that the security guys are. I'm like, what's this deal? And he goes, oh, seriously, every Tuesday, somebody pays each one of these dudes $50 to stand here for 5 hours screaming. And that's it. I mean, you can pay these people. If you don't think there's paid operatives doing a lot of the nuts just to spin up the herd, that's a lot of that behind the scenes communist shit. Mm. But it's not that. The way through it is a normal conversation with facts and solutions. But boy, we just love to scream at each other, like you're saying. That all you want to do is prove how bad he is. So much worse than I am.
Sure, yeah, and I think it's probably a good idea for all of us to first look at the people who agree with us. You know what I mean? And not be suspicious of those people, but when the people who are on our side get out of hand and start acting like assholes, you should be more concerned and active and trying to shut that shit down than you are about trying to argue with some Democrat on fucking Twitter. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's police are wrong. But that, with that would come logic, and with logic would come education and facts, which that's out the window. So, I mean, I keep bringing up the Capitol. Like, what were you thinking? I mean, even if you notice the rioters, most of them stayed within the velvet ropes, but that's a stupid thing. Don't go in there. Come on, guys.
Yeah, that isn't. I've never been much of an apologist for that whole situation. It's like I've been in some pretty tense situations before,
Yes.
mostly involving guns and bombs and shit. But the ability to fucking do the right thing under pressure is something that we expect out of people. You know what I mean? And it seems like that's certainly become the exception now. And I don't think it's because people aren't capable. I think it's because they just don't. They're not in that frame of mind. They're still. They think it's us versus them, and whomever us is and whomever them happens to be. That's how they frame everything, instead of just like, forget about all these people and characters and personalities involved. What's right and what's wrong? Maybe just do those things. You know what I mean?
It's really that simple. If I get asked all the time, why were you guys so good in combat? I was like, we weren't good in combat. We were just good at doing the easy thing. We're doing the basics. We got really, really good at the basics. And that is what's right and what's wrong. And then just, if the guy in front of me goes left, I'm going to go right because that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. When someone, and there were people smart enough at the Capitol to say, come on, knock it off, get out of there. But the people that just followed him in there because some asshole, either the Capitol Police let him in or someone tore it down. That's not the right thing to do. I mean, if you want to get in the Capitol, you can get in there. Just this isn't the right way to do it. And knowing the Democrats and their emotion, they're going to exploit you. Try to think a few steps ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it is trying to get people to understand when they're being played. I guess you know what I mean, because it can be.
That's a big. You need to know. You need to probably have been hustled a few times to realize that not everyone's your friend. That someone's going to hustle you. Let them. Like it's like we go back to the small crimes equal the big crimes. Like the dude that pushed the other dude in front of the subway, I guarantee he didn't pay his fare. So maybe that if we stop that shit, the bigger stuff won't come with it. But
for sure.
That would come personal responsibility, which really is out the window.
And I think part of it as well is the nobody feels any ownership anymore. No. Like when people used to be look, I don't think people should just be proud of America just to do it. No. But you should be proud of America because it's where you live, and you should put the effort in to make sure your pride is well spent. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But there just isn't that sense of like community pride anymore, and that's a big deal, man. It's a big deal for people to feel that way.
We're being taught, like, if you look at the difference between at the World Cup, look at the difference between the United States mumbling the national anthem. We're happy they stood up. Watch the team from Morocco scream their national anthem. That's pride in their country. That's pride to what we bring. And we've been taught so long that America, I mean, not only that America's but like we're the reason for evil, when they don't realize your life is so good because of capitalism. We're greener than we are now around the world because of stuff capitalism invented. But we're going to teach us that we're bad. We're inherently bad. Like we're the only country that's ever taken anything by force.
Yeah, you'll hear people say things like, look at how much work we've had to do to make this, to fix all these things. Like, yeah, but people have tried to do this in Saudi Arabia and Iran, a lot of other places too, and they don't have the system of government that allows for that kind of progress, right? Like you can, I mean, it's not hard to make the case that we had some pretty morally conflicted people that started this country, right?
No doubt about it.
But they wrote some computer code that allowed us to fucking lay some apps down on top of it that have allowed for it to become improved. And that was the intent from the beginning, right? They didn't write that all white men are created equal. They said all men are created equal, right? And even though they weren't behaving that way at the time, the fact that they wrote it down that way and then instituted a republic and federalism in such a way that allowed us to build on top of it, that was what matters. So yeah, maybe the history is a little bleak from time to time. There were some mistakes were made for sure, but the construct itself was good enough that we were able to build on top of it and make it what we wanted to, which was the fucking point in the first place. You can't do that in most places. It's not the case.
No, you can't. You can't. No, there's absolutely. Look at Qatar again with the World Cup. You know how many people died building those stadiums?
Yeah, like 5,000 people. They say it's they say it's 600, and even then they're just like, it was only 600 people. 600 fucking people to build a stadium? Holy shit!
And they're dying over there. And then the morality police who got elected are on Capitol Hill lecturing you. I would love to see. I would love for people to see what they're doing personally when the cameras are off. They're not the best fucking people in the world either.
No, certainly not. I mean, it's starting to come out a little bit more here lately, especially with all the Twitter revelation. And I got to be honest. So Twitter's audience is probably a quarter of what Facebook's is, I guess. And then Google, it's maybe 100th of what Google's is. So you can imagine how bad these problems we've seen brought to light over the last couple of weeks, how bad they really are. You can multiply them by about 20, right?
Well, that's why Elon Musk has gone from a hero inventing the electric car and taking people to space to the biggest villain in the world, because they're afraid what he's able to show. Like, I guess he got on stage with Chappelle and got booed the other night. And people aren't booing him because they bothered to look at what's happening. They're booed because they were told to boo him because he's bad.
Yeah, I don't. You would think a Chappelle audience would be smarter than that, I guess.
I'll tell you what, Chappelle's got some of the smartest comedy out there.
Yeah,
I would wish that I think he's the best one ever. But yeah, you would. But no, because again, the herd hears that he is a fascist or whatever. And everyone's leaving Twitter, but they don't really leave Twitter. I saw a good one too the other day that said Elton John left Twitter. It's kind of ironic. It was because of a Rocket Man, which that's not my joke. That's obviously someone else's. But I mean, there's like, I left Twitter, but boy, I got to tell you this. Like, well, you haven't really left yet. You're just right there. Yeah,
I'm not. There's a couple of people. Robert Reich, that midget from Cal, Berkeley, The Economist, and let's see. There's a handful of dudes who keep talking about how Twitter's failing. A leftist dum-dums, either from government or from Hollywood, that keep saying Twitter's fucking, it's going to be over anytime. Like, all right, cool, man. Nope. One, but also, why are you still here? You know what I mean? It's not an airport. You don't have to announce your exit, by the way.
I thought you could just go make your own.
Yeah, just Mastodon. That's the new one.
Okay, yeah, that'll last.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we got to get going. So I appreciate you coming on today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience? Yeah. And also tell them where they can find all your stuff.
Yeah, all my stuff is at McHuya. That's on social media. And that's because I started on my social media before I thought anyone would know who I was. So Mick for O'Neill and Huya for Buds. So Mick Huya. And from there, you can get onto my RJO Apparel and then all the places you find podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. The Operator Podcast. It's a lot like what we just did today. A lot of fun just to shoot the shit about what we think is right. And the thing is, I check my social media. Like if I said something fucked up and you catch me, I'll admit it. I'm like, oh, that was stupid. Or I was wrong. Thank you. It's, and then obviously I heard a comedian the other day say, if social media is so funny, if you came out and just said, I love French toast, 20 minutes, someone will be yelling, fuck French toast. But who hates French toast? But yeah, so at McHuya, Twitter and Instagram and all that good shit. And then the Operator Podcast, a lot of fun. And that's about it. Thanks.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming today.
Yeah, man, good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too, buddy. We'll see you soon, hopefully in person sometime.
I hope so, man. We'll make it happen.
Cool, buddy. All right. And thank you all for watching. This has been Citizen.